bestseller. You know, each book has its right time. And so I am at the point now where I really enjoy owning books. And the one thing that I'll tell people is you can get on disinformation at the library. The other thing that you can do is buy it and give it away. Give it to a friend. Yeah. I don't want people to necessarily do what I did, buy the book and put it on the shelf. I want you to pass it through a friend. Leave it in your Uber. Leave it on the bus. Pass it hand to hand. It's a small pocket book. You know, it's a manifesto. And I'm hoping that it gets around to more and more people. Libraries are wonderful, and you know, maybe 100 people will read the same book, and that's wonderful. But I enjoy owning books and then lending them out as long as I know I'm going to get them back.
That's good, great. Well, thank you again so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it, and you're a wonderful guest. Pick up a copy of On Disinformation. It is definitely a fascinating read for sure. Thank you all for joining us today. I hope you join us again on A Novel Idea.
No,
wasting a lot of time.
Are you guys all set?
1, 2, 3, 4. Won't give us another minute. Oh, well. No, not yet. Give us a couple more minutes.
Sure.
No, I know, right? The moms were really unhappy on our front porch the other day. Oh, no. So technically this is still what happened? Oh. Since this is still here, do the same thing with the consent of Shutter. Okay. Hello.
Still need to wait, or?
I think we're still finishing up our Zoom. Give us like another minute or two.
Just give me the thumbs up when you're ready.
Okay, perfect. Nice. That's some real teamwork right there. Love that. We do. Yep. All right. We're good when you guys are, Brian.
All right, stand by. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday, October 22nd meeting of the Long Meadow School Committee. School committees and other public bodies may continue to hold remote meetings through March 31st, 2025, under legislation enacted on March 29th, 2023. The statute, Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, extends quorum reductions for remote meetings. All votes while there is remote participation must be made by roll call vote. This meeting is being recorded and aired live by LCTV, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have no correspondence, so we'll move right on to approval of minutes. We have a recommended motion.
I move that the school committee approve the minutes to the October 8th, 2024 school committee meeting as presented.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. Zach?
Yes.
Estelle?
Yes.
Michaela?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
And yes for me as well. We are moving on to public speak. We have some members of the public who are here and are welcome to make themselves known and come on forward. We'll kick off with Mr. Ray. Saw your hand go up first. A reminder to state your name and connection to Long Meadow Public Schools.
Sure. Armin Ray, 96 Shady Side Drive. I'm the current chair of the school building committee. I'm here tonight because our next meeting isn't going to be till the 13th, which is after town meeting. I just want to make sure everybody is aware that there is a warrant article that will be on the town meeting article on November 12th, which tries to put forward an opinion article on the status of the project. So the committee's been meeting together since 2 years ago with the November town meeting, which funded the study that we're in the middle of right now. The committee has put together hundreds of hours, over 20 meetings, multiple public meetings, and has spent a lot of time looking at all of the sites available in town, all of the options for the school. And I agree, traffic at Williams is horrible, and it's not going to get fixed unless we do something about it. And I think that the committee has done their work and due diligence appropriately to get to the point where we have submitted that the consolidated school, especially Marty pointed out, and I'm sure Marty's addressed this many times, the educational advantages of a combined school. No more teachers going back and forth between schools for the specials, for music, for art, for gym, which puts them at risk too when they're doing that transportation. Consolidating all of our abilities to help children with disadvantages throughout the process. Largely not putting our kids in trailers for 2 years too, while they're trying to do an education process, and that's a big reason why the Glenbrook's site was not selected, because we would have to have modulars, which are in the millions of dollars, which are never recovered at all. We pay for that out of pocket. But for whatever reasons, just to let you know, there's an opinion article. I'm hoping that everybody gets informed, comes to town meeting, and shows support for the work that the school building committee has done on behalf of both the select board, the school committee, me as your representative, and the town in general. So looking for everybody's support. Come out on town meeting. I believe it's article number 6. And show your support for a plan which is the best one for, we believe, spent with all of the work we've done for the children and for the town. So thank you for the time, and I hope you guys have a great meeting. I know where you guys have been. So.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Just a quick note that we will return to the topic of town meeting and motions later this evening during one of our business with guest options. Other community members who would like to come forward and speak, come on forward. A reminder to start with name.
Thank
and
you.
address.
Hello again. Melissa Sobolski, high school parent. I want to thank you, school committee, and Dr. O'Shea for offering this forum for community members to speak at. When I was here 2 weeks ago to speak on the issue of ballot question 2 on repealing the MCAS test as a graduation requirement, I had no idea that the main agenda item that evening was the sharing and discussing of the district's spring 2024 results. I hope that I provided a glimpse into one family's lived experience outside the data points. I was happy to hear Beth Nelson and Dr. O'Shea acknowledge that MCAS scores are only one measure of student achievement. I wholeheartedly believe that they believe that. And when teachers say it, I wholeheartedly believe that they mean it as well. Same for administrators at every school level, including Lisa Efstradios at the high school. I believe that she believes wholeheartedly in the student before the number. DESE, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed, only cares about the number. More specifically, a 470 in biology or physics and a 486 in English and math, passing score numbers that have been raised since COVID, which is a testament to a disconnect between what's happening in Boston versus what's happening on the ground. And I'm sure that's why it was a 5th grade teacher from Hull, Massachusetts, who brought this ballot question forward, and why the MTA stands so strongly behind it. Teachers and administrators have spent the past 25 years balancing the needs of the children in front of them and the requirements DESE imposes upon them. I'm here to speak only as a parent, though, specifically as the parent of a child in special education whose school life has been one hurdle after another and only made more difficult by the ever-present shadow of 10th grade MCAS. I am grateful that the school committee has added a conversation about the impact of the MCAS graduation requirement to the agenda tonight. I look forward to hearing what all parties bring forward. You may hear that fewer than 1% of students do not graduate with a diploma. But in getting to that end goal, an enormous additional workload and stress is placed on the staff, administration, and most importantly, the kids that must sit for the tests again and again, up to 4 times, before the school can apply for an appeal with the state. I hope that you as a committee can come to an agreement that there is great opportunity in embracing the change that Question 2 offers. Massachusetts schools were leaders before the MCAS graduation requirement, and I have no doubt that they will continue to be. I encourage you all to embrace a yes on 2 vote for high standards, not high stakes. Thank you.
Thank you. And a note to the committee that we will also be continuing the conversation of MCAS later this evening. Any other public comments? Come on forward.
Excuse me, got one on.
Good evening, Dr. O'Shea and esteemed members of the school committee. My name is Diane Perfilio, and as many of you know, I proudly serve as the co-president of SEAL. This evening, I stand before you to share my personal perspective on a matter close to my heart. I am here to express my unequivocal support for Question 2 on the upcoming ballot. The proposal to designate the MCAS as a graduation requirement raises significant concerns for students, particularly those who are neurodiverse. I was profoundly moved by Melissa's heartfelt statement last week's meeting, which equivocally articulated the struggles that many families, including my own, may face under such a mandate. As the mother of a child who may one day navigate the challenges of high school, I deeply empathize with the fears and hopes that parents like me harbor for our children's futures. Let me clearly clarify that Question 2 does not seek to eliminate MCAS, simply advocates for it not to be a mandatory condition for graduation. By supporting this measure, we embrace a more inclusive education system that recognizes and honors the diverse learning styles and needs of all students. My endorsement of Question 2 aligns with my support for Melissa, whose insights have been invaluable in this crucial discussion. Thank you for allowing me to share my thoughts, and I hope we can work together towards an educational framework that fosters growth and success for every child in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other community members who would like to come forward and speak? Anyone at home who would like to speak is welcome to unmute or raise a hand or turn on the camera. Okay, seeing no comments, thank you to our community members for coming out tonight. We are going to move forward with Business with Guests, and we are beginning our Business with Guests with our student advisory. We have some friends from the high school joining us to talk to us about some updates from the high school. We'll turn over to our student representative, Andrew Medeiros.
Thank you, guys. So a couple weeks ago, we had our Empower Leadership training for all the captains of the fall sports teams at the high school. This included activities like you would have to, there's this like big like sort of circle full of all these different objects, and the person running the program just hid this black pen, and you had to all work together, well actually kind of work together to help find the pen. And then every single person, once they found it, they would have to leave the circle, quietly, and then you kind of sort of had to follow that person's lead to figure out where the pen was. And then we also did another activity where people were blindfolded, and you had to put basically a bunch of puzzle pieces together. And the people who were blindfolded were the people who were like touching all the puzzle pieces, but then the people who were able to communicate where the puzzle pieces weren't blindfolded, so that required some communication. And it just gave us really strong insight in terms of how we can better lead our teams through communication and stress management.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Tran. I am a sophomore student at LHS. First, I would like to talk about the blood drive. The blood drive was on October 7th. The Red Cross Club sponsored it, and the Bay State Medical Services performed medical supply, and 15 students donated. Next up, we will talk about Spirit Week. This week is Spirit Week. Yesterday was College Day to coincide with the college fair. Today was Groutfit Day, which we dressed in all gray. Tomorrow we will dress in tropical shirts. Thursday we are dressing as someone else for our twin day. And Friday is a class color day, which coincides with our prep rally. We are also going to have a rock, paper, scissors competition on Friday. Next off, we have sophomore lock-in. We will have the sophomore lock-in on November 1st. We are in the process of selling tickets and setting up sign-up geniuses for parents to volunteer and help out, which is going great.
Okay, so actually it was last Friday, we had the WMASC Fall Conference at Minnechaug, and this included a really cool guest speaker. I forget what his name was, but he's been an animator for Pixar, and he did this really cool show with a bunch of onstage art, and it sort of was meant to inspire us to take our own path and be our own leader within. And then after we had our keynote speaker, we went in and did two leadership workshops, which were very insightful in terms of how we can better lead student council events and activities, and just sort of be better leaders within our school. And then last week we also, as the seniors, we did parking spaces. I believe the cost was $25, and that paid for all the expenses needed, paint. And I'm sure if you go out to the parking lot, you'll see all the awesome newly painted parking spots that let students express all their interests for their senior year. And then, as I believe Steven said, we have our pep rally on Friday. So in the gym, we'll have all 4 classes, and they'll all be dressed in a different color. We'll have all of our activities, so clubs, sports will walk in with a banner. They'll be introduced by Mr. Fram, I believe, or Jack Kofinke, it's one of the two. And then, and then we'll also have games and a unified basketball game. So it will really help to bring our school spirit sort of to the next level, which is something we've been really trying to work on under Mr. Alex's leadership in the past couple of years, which has really improved a lot, especially since I was a freshman. And then on October 26th at Worcester Tech, we have the MASC officer workshop, which includes training just for all your class officers and e-board officers. And then also, this is really, really big, we have the online apparel store, which is open through the 27th. I believe there should have been an email sent out to students about ordering, and then we also have banners and flyers up all over the school with a QR code. It's a really great way to support student council. It's a fundraiser, and it's also just fun merch to show your school spirit. And then on next week, we have our Japan visitors arriving from Takikawa West High School. It's in Hokkaido, Japan, which is that main northern island. And then, so they'll be arriving next week, and we'll have a bunch of activities planned out. We'll be working with the Asian Studies class. They'll be coming in every day and working and doing a bunch of different activities that we're helping to plan. And then we also have, okay, this is a big one. We have our sports update. So what do we have going on? So we have the volleyball team, I believe, has their Western Mass on Saturday. Cross country is on Sunday. Field hockey has their semifinals on Thursday. So yeah.
I'm Danica. I'm a junior, and I'll be talking about the college fair, which was yesterday. So juniors and seniors had the opportunity to learn about local colleges and ask questions to admissions officers, and then we could also learn about careers that we could do right after high school, and then it was a really helpful and informative experience for everyone to learn about. And also the Halloween Spooktacular is coming up, which the volunteer club Key Club will be hosting, and that will be this Saturday from 4 to 9. It's a free event for kids, and anyone who comes is encouraged to donate, because all the donations will be donated to Camp Sunshine, which is a camp for kids with cancer. And the Spooktacular is a really popular event. There will be carnival games, trick-or-treating, and a ton of other activities that everyone will enjoy.
That's everything? Yes? All right. That's a lot of stuff. Thank you to all of you for coming out. We appreciate Stephen and Danica joining Andrew tonight, and thank you to Ms. Trowick and the rest of the high school team for all of their support for all the things you guys have been doing. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Does anyone on the committee have any questions or comments for these guys? No?
Can I?
Yes,
can I
absolutely.
underscore there's so many great activities, but,
Yeah.
and so many things were jumping out at me as the students were talking, but the college and career fair was wonderful, and it reflected kind of a broadening view of how we view student success. And certainly there was so many of the traditional four-year colleges were represented, and their tables were getting a lot of action and a lot of attention. But what was neat to see is the opportunities for kids to learn about careers across the board. And so there was tables with manufacturers, there was tables from local employers, and it was a really broad way for students to engage in college and career activities. So shout out to the high school administration for pulling that off, and just a thanks to Heidi Drowick and Lisa Stradios, our assistant principals at the high school. As you can see, they put students first. They put students in the foreground, and they hang in the back. But a lot of credit to them for setting our students up for success. So thank you both.
All right.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much. I think we have one more thing related to student. We have an international friendship garden. I think you're taking that one, if I recall correctly.
So this is we had a student, an Eagle Scout, who couldn't be with us tonight. We were hoping to kind of line it up, but he's a junior, Felix Zhao, and Felix, as part of his Eagle Scout project, had put together a proposal for an international friendship garden. So I thought it was worth, with the students here tonight, and knowing the school committee's policy around donations, and with the Japanese delegation arriving from Takakawa soon, I thought it was a good time to highlight the friendship garden that Felix had brought forward to us. Little background on his Eagle Scout project. This is a presentation that he made to me in my office a couple of weeks back. He did a wonderful job, but his intention is to honor the 20-year history of the Japanese exchange program, nearly 20 years. And so this really comes from, it's funded by the Asian History Club, and that flows out of the Asian history class that Lori Snyder has taught for decades at Longmeadow High. The purpose of the Japanese Friendship Garden is to commemorate the relationship between Takakawa and Longmeadow, to build awareness and to promote some engagement with our Asian sister city. Felix laid out the design. It is meant to be installed, and they've already started it just outside the entrance of the high school, and there'll be some plants that are native to Japan but will also thrive in our climate. There'll be a commemorative plaque as well. And then, like I said, the cost of this was covered by the East Asian Club, and it will soon be completed. So if you have an opportunity to swing by and check out the Japanese Friendship Garden, it's a nice addition to the front of the school, and we're thankful to Felix for offering his services to complete this. So very exciting. Great way to welcome our Japanese visitors who will arrive in a couple of weeks. So wanted to share that with the committee. Appreciate the chance to do that.
All right.
All right.
Awesome. Questions related to the Friendship Garden or any of the other components here? All right.
Thank you,
seeing none.
students.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate
Appreciate you guys
out.
coming
All
out. With the consent of the committee, I'd like to move one of our items that has been listed on our agenda under new business up to business with guests so that we can invite some of our guests to come forward and join us. And that is the topic of the MCAS, and particularly state ballot question 2. If you'd like to come on forward, Ms. Estradios is here to speak with us a little bit more about MCAS. I'll just do a quick precursor before you start, that in your packet you will find the language for state ballot 2, and you will also find in your packet the position statements that have been put out by the Massachusetts Teachers Association, the MASC, or Massachusetts Association of School Committees, and the MASS, or Mass Association of School Superintendents. Each of those committees put out a particular policy statement related to ballot question number 2, and we have the opportunity tonight to hear a little bit about what MCAS means for our students here in Long Meadow, specifically what MCAS means for our special education students in the high school level, and their graduation rates, et cetera, and then we can discuss if we would like to make any particular positions ourselves.
All right.
We'll open that up.
So welcome, Lisa Estradios, assistant principal at the high school. And Lisa is, when we thought it might be helpful to provide an overview to the committee and to the community on high school MCAS, and particularly how a competency determination is made, and what happens if students fall short of that competency determination. I would just say that Lisa is my go-to person when I need to understand high school MCAS, and she understands the logistics associated with testing hundreds of students under tight testing conditions. But on the other side of it, Lisa is a wonderful support to students who have not yet achieved the competency determination, and she understands the tutoring services we offer, and she works closely with students and families to help get students past that requirement and prepare them for a diploma. So I'm grateful that Lisa is here with us. Also joining us is our Director of Special Education, Nicole Perez-Crow. Actually, might as well come on up, because I think there's one slide that we have in mind for you. So Nicole Perez-Crow, familiar face, our Director of Special Education. So 2 administrators with deep knowledge of high school MCAS and what it means for our students. So I'll run through the slides at Lisa's direction here. So
thank you so much.
welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Shea. Thank you, school committee members. Before I start, thank you to our students, because they are here tonight and they did a wonderful job. I appreciate what you said, but I also appreciate you supporting the other students and what they have coming up in their schedules coming out. So
Thank you.
everybody go out and cheer on our teams, because they really need your support. Tonight, Dr. O'Shea just asked me to just give an overview. I'm not going to touch on the question, because that's everyone's individual choice. I have my own opinion. You'll probably be able to read through some of my lines, but I will keep it private right now. But to each and every one, I think you should make the decision that's best for you and for your family. And I do appreciate the people that spoke tonight and spoke especially on a personal level and about our marginalized students, because they are the ones that statewide and in LHS do tend to fall sometimes a little short and need a little bit more support. So before I begin, I wanted to make sure we acknowledge all of that. So how did this happen? In 2022, the Board of Education got together and they voted. They voted to raise basically the MCAS scores, especially in certain areas. In 2024, a letter was sent out. They call it the Parent Guardian Information Letter, and they basically just tell you that it's done. So if you missed anything prior to that, you just found out after the fact from DESE. This is driven by DESE, and we just have to meet the requirements. We can go to slide 2.
All right, I'll note CD on slide 1 refers to competency determination. So and there we go.
Look at a good student he is. He already jumped ahead. So, competency determination requirements. That's what we're going to talk about next. There are 2 major ways and 2 options that the state gives for a student to reach what's called competency determination. We'll call it CD. Option 1 And I'm going to point out, when you see 2025, it's the class of 2025. And when you see 2026, it's the class of 2026 through the class of 2030. These are what these scores will relate to if everything stays the same following the vote on 2. So in 2025's class, the option 1 was if you earned a score of 472, you immediately earned your CD and ELA, and you no longer took MCAS. You met the requirement for the state. In 2026, what they did for that class in 2030 is they raised the score to 486. That was post-COVID, and that was in their determination to level the playing field with what you'll see for math. Math had already been 486, and in 2026 to 2030, it remains 486. Science had a slight change in 2 factors. 1, chemistry is no longer offered. So now the students have the option of taking biology or intro to physics. Intro to physics did not change, it remains at 470, but biology went from 467 to 470. So that is the score changes that you see. If a student doesn't meet that requirement, then they have to go on to option 2. Option 2 would be an EPP, Educational Proficiency Plan. I'll explain that in a little bit more detail as we move along. Students that have to retest fall below the EPP score. They didn't reach the benchmark for option 1, and they didn't meet the benchmark for option 2. So they fall below that benchmark, which means the state requires them to retest. That's the next slide. So for 2024, which is we're going to focus on our spring assessments. Those are the ones offered in the final parts of the year to grade 9 for biology and grade 10 for ELA and math. For grade 9 biology, last year, 13 students out of 225 will need to retest. If the scores had not changed from 467 to 470, 5 out of 225 students would have had to retest. So there's been an impact based on the score. I will explain the other ones a little bit later. There was no change in ELA for retesting, and there was no change right now that I want to mention for math based on the score changes. Because math stayed the same, it was the same level playing field that it was for the years prior. English did not have an impact. We can go on to the next slide. Retest opportunities. If you fall below the benchmark, yes, as someone previously stated, Ms. Sabilski did a nice job saying this, students do have lots of opportunities, but it is a lot of stressful opportunities, and we try to help our students manage through it, maintain their stress factor, and just focus on what they're doing at the time. I always say to them, do not worry about the score you need. I actually don't want to talk about the score you need, because you're only going to do the best job you can. We're going to be happy with that, and then we're going to move on from there, and we'll make our plans after that. So in November, they always offer ELA and math for a retest. In February, it's biology and intro to physics, and the numbers you see after the dates will fall on this year. In March, they added this a year or so ago. They added an ELA and math retest there. The other March ELA you see is the grade 10 assessment. Students that retest do qualify to take that test as well. In May is the grade 10 math test, where students can retest as well. We'll talk a little bit about EPP math challenge exam in a bit on another slide. That's to be determined because the state hadn't given the dates out yet. And in June, biology and intro physics are offered to our grade 9 students, but students can also retest on that date as well. So those are the opportunities that the state gives high school students to retest. They're all prescribed dates. We wish we could alter them sometimes, especially for our schedules and what's going on with school, but they're prescribed for the entire state, and we have to test on those days.
Just want to, before we move on, this gives you some appreciation for the complexity of MCAS administration, and this is obviously just one grade at one school. But imagine, thinking about the middle school where students test in three subjects, 2 subjects every year and 3 subjects one year. So it requires a lot of staff and students and administrators to go through this.
So option 2 is the educational proficiency plan. Students that score in that particular range qualify to be on an educational proficiency plan. That means it is individualized. It is for the student. The school counselor meets with each student that they have on their caseload that falls under this plan. What students have to do to meet the CD requirements when they're on here is in their grade 11 year and their grade 12 year, in the content area, they have to take and pass a course. So if it's math, they have to take a math course in their grade 11 year, They take a math course in grade 12 year, they have to pass that course, and they have to take the final both years. EPP challenge exam is only offered in math. The reason for that is because the state requirement for graduation is 4 years of ELA, so all students have to pass 4 years of ELA, so as do the students on the EPP. So that's why they don't offer the state an ELA EPP challenge exam. The challenge exam is different because it is 60 multiple choice questions. Most students take about an hour and 15 minutes tops, usually one class period, maybe a little bit over, and we also get to grade that in-house. So within a 2-day, usually 3-day turnaround, we have the scores on site, so we can take that anxiety level off of students and off of their families, because we can provide that score a lot quicker. If a student passes the EPP challenge exam, they immediately come off their EPP. They have fulfilled the requirement and they are completely done. With option 1 and option 2, regardless, students do not have to sit for the full MCAS test ever again if they qualify for an EPP, or they absolutely just meet the CD right out of the gate. So either way, they do not take the 2-day assessment, because every test is a 2-day assessment. ELA, math, and sciences are all a 2-day assessment. So they do not have to do that. And again, if they pass the EPP challenge exam, they immediately fulfill the state's requirement and they come off the EPP. What will be new for 2026? Our counselors already communicate, but they will send a physical hard copy home now to families and guardians of the student's EPP. Along with laying out what courses the student will take, they work with the student, they work with recommendations of the teacher, they make sure what there's going to be the requirement. They also list what other supports that student may need. Every student's individualized, so we really do target the supports, what will best fit them, what they're comfortable with, what they will get the most use out of. Other thing that's always part of the EPP is all those test opportunities, and students sometimes choose to take them all. Some families will call me and say, we got to pass on the next one. They're either falling behind in classes or they're getting nervous about falling behind in classes. We always do support making up work, because when you're out of the classroom taking these tests, you do miss some classwork. So we are really good about making sure they have lots of support to make up that work that they miss when they're out of the classroom. So they'll have the multiple opportunities to take the retest as well. This will be a little bit more interesting. So students requiring in the EPP. Biology, again, there is no EPP offered by the state. In English, this past year, it required us to have 14 out of 236 students be on an EPP. Prior to the change, what's interesting, from 455 to 471, all 14 of those students would have passed the MCAS. We would have had none of those 14 students on an EPP. Also interesting is 6 out of the 8 students that I mentioned before that will need to retest, they would have qualified for an EPP. So I thought that was very interesting information to share with everybody, that those scores in ELA definitely did have a different impact on us this year. In math, not a surprise, it didn't have a major impact because that score has been set for quite some time, but one student would have moved from not meeting the CD requirement of retesting to over to EPP. So we would have had one of those students be able to move up a level and go over to EPP. Supports we have. We always have the content area teacher as the best place to start. Students are receiving content area coursework ongoing. Our liaisons that work within our special ed department to help certify with our students that they can do this. They give them emotional support, they give them content support, they work with the teachers to make sure the students are getting what they need prior to testing. Some other things we have, though, in the high school. Our Student Support Center, it's in room 223. I'm saying that, so any families that are at home listening, please send your students to room 223. It's open every single block, every single day, and all students in the school can go to it. That is staffed by 2 certified teachers. One teacher is certified in special ed and reading. The other is certified in mathematics. They have an extensive amount of experience working at MCAS, not only for new students, because it's another category, as our students who have never lived in the state of Massachusetts before, and we say, welcome to Massachusetts. You'll be taking the MCAS this year, which is another lovely conversation I get to have and surprise them. They teach them the format of the test. That's a good opportunity during an ICE block or a teacher recommendation to go over to say, show them how the format, how's the test laid out, what's it gonna look like. That reduces some anxiety for them as well. Also, they can go over specific strategies for individualized students, and they can ask questions. Another thing that we have is prior to the biology test, we offer after-school tutoring for that. Because they take it in grade 9, in grade 10, most students will not be taking biology unless they came from out of district from a different school. So we offer after-school biology tutoring by a certified special education teacher who's also certified in biology. She does a wonderful job. I'm going to say her name, Natalie DeGrule, because she's done such a fantastic job, and students have really made huge growth strides in passing the bio MCAS because of her, so kudos to Natalie. LHS Writing Center is in our library and in Media Center. It is also every block, every day, all students. It's a great opportunity to work on open responses, but it's also somewhere where students can go to just work on any type of writing whatsoever. It doesn't matter the subject area. They focus on everything. The key part is all the support people, be it a liaison, the content teacher, the teachers in 223, they receive individual itemized data analysis from each student so they can focus on that student and what they need. Every student doesn't need help in every standard. So if they did well in standards, they'll review it, but then they'll focus on the ones that they need extra help on so that we can boost that score up and get them over the next hurdle. So it's all based on what that student needs, and they focus on that. Hopefully this will ease a little bit. Please reach out. I'm going to finish up with this one in a second, but please reach out. Any question, anytime. We're here to answer questions. DESE does have a robust website, but if you have to weed through it for somebody who's never really done MCAS, I've done MCAS for more than 10 years here. I was the MCAS person for 18 years at my previous district. I've done a lot of MCAS. So it rolls off my tongue a little bit easier, and I can give the supports that I need to students because I don't have to get tied up in what's going on with the test, but it can be overwhelming for families. So please reach out if you have a question and encourage students. The good news is, too, more than 15 years, probably close to the 20 is what I've been told, students that have sat and participated in the MCAS have all met the state competency determination to date as of today. We have not had any students not meet the state competency determination. We hope that stays true. We will do our best to support children so that can happen, but that's what it is for the students that take the standardized. That is like 99% of the students at LHS and statewide. Nicole Paris-Crowe is going to speak on MCAS Alt, which affects a smaller portion of our student body, but it also does statewide, and she's going to focus on that. That's her specialty. Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you, Lisa. Lisa is definitely the go-to person in the district when it comes to MCAS. As an assistant principal, I definitely reached out to Lisa when I was working in MCAS with students. So MCAS Alt is an alternative assessment. Approximately 1% statewide of students. So it's a small number of students with the most significant cognitive disabilities. So it's about 1% take the MCAS alternative assessment. So to jump to the beginning, each student's IEP team decides how, not whether the student will participate in MCAS. So a majority, most of our students participate in the standard computer-based or paper-based paper and pencil MCAS test. But like I said, there's that smaller portion of students that may participate in MCAS alternative assessment. The MCAS Alt consists of a portfolio collected over most of the school year based on in-class instruction. Assessments include skill surveys, data charts, student work samples, and that's something that the teacher, the special education teacher, would collect and put together in order to submit it to the state. It is a very long and arduous process. It usually requires several people, including the special education teacher, the related service providers, to be working with the student. And once the portfolio is completed, families are invited in to review it and to sign off on it, to sign off that they've seen it, that they are in agreement with the work that was done, that there was a true, depiction of what their child did over the course of the year, and then it's submitted to the Department of Education to be scored.
So we hope that was a good primer for whatever discussion might ensue, and we often will push out videos of this meeting to the wider community, so hopefully it gives interested community members some critical information to make an informed decision on ballot question 2. And we stand ready to answer any questions that you might have.
All right, so I'll open up for questions. Wherever the school committee decides to move ahead or not move ahead with any kind of resolution of our own, to echo what Dr. O'Shea said, I wanted to ensure that we had an opportunity for both us and the community at large to hear a little bit more about the impact that MCAS testing has on our students here in Long Meadow. So thank you both for coming out and talking to us about that tonight. And I'll open up for anyone who might have any questions or follow-up for that. Michaela.
Thank you. I just have one question. Why did they change the ELA score to be so much higher? That's just ridiculous.
Yeah, they don't really post, they just said to have the standard, and it was post-COVID, and they felt after post-COVID, because prior to post-COVID, what they did is during COVID and right after, we did what was called the CD modification, where we went by courses and we had to go upload those to the state. And then once that was over, they then had it set in 2022 that they would move forward and raise the score to the same as the 486 for the math.
I know, it's like the same pattern, they've raised it previously?
Yes, yep.
Just has a bigger impact now?
I think it had an initial bigger impact. It's more so because the EPP changed with it. So it wasn't just that the passing score went to 486 for the one where you just pass and you're done. I think with changing that and the EPP at the same time, you got it like a double effect.
Fun fact, I was in the first graduating class that I had to pass that MCAS. But we took it in the hallway. There was like no test security, so I didn't take it like how it's taken today.
Yes, no.
Follow-up questions, Jamie?
Yeah.
And/or statements?
Question, because I'm learning as I go here. So that was one question. I also had, so two-part question. So whenever Melissa spoke 2 weeks ago, she said that in Connecticut there are no, there's no MCAS in Connecticut or any type of scoring like this. So basically you go to Enfield and not have this particular test.
MCAS.
Is that correct?
I don't think they call it.
They don't call it MCAS.
But they have, do they have?
There's an equivalency.
Something
It just called something different, yeah.
So it's an equivalency test and they tie it to
They
that.
call it something different. It's kind of like the regions in New York. Every state can
It
set
may
their
not
own.
have the same
Yes, impact.
competency determination impact. So every state has
Sets
to
their own.
have a 4th, 8th, and 10th grade test by
Yeah.
federal law.
Right.
So every state has a 10th grade test, but whether or not it's tied to someone's diploma is different. It's different across the country.
Got it. And then just to clarify question 2, because I was trying to research, this is overriding what the state, what DESE did is making it part of being able, whether you can graduate, being above these scores. It's just your GPA. Is that what that's doing? What is question 2 doing if we answer yes? I guess, are we overriding?
I'm happy to speak to that.
Yeah, I didn't
Do you
know.
know? I don't know.
Yes, so the question 2 would repeal the graduation requirement component of it. MCAS would still continue. MCAS would continue at all the grades that it currently happens at. 9th grade for science, 10th grade for ELA and math, all the younger grades would continue to take MCAS. The MCAS data would still be used by DESE to assess where schools are, to assess what concerns there might be with curriculum. It would still be used by school districts to look at their own populations within school districts and where they are meeting or not meeting student needs. The only change would be that now MCAS would not be the determining factor of if you can or cannot receive your high school diploma.
Got it.
So if you did not pass, you would not then have a diploma withheld or have to do an EPP or any of the other steps.
So it would be used for analysis or whatnot, but we as a school district would determine whether that child has
Correct.
met and satisfied the requirements to graduate in Long Meadow High.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Which is the
So
second prong, Jamie, right now.
Okay.
Right now, it's MCAS and meet the required course load and credits to graduate. So if you
Okay.
pass your courses and reach the 94 credits along with MCAS, you can earn your diploma.
Okay, and in that question, if I answer yes, that is what it's doing, just because I think
That
those
is
questions
correct.
get confusing.
They do.
That is what we're trying, okay.
Yes, so a
I get
yes
it.
vote would say that MCAS would no longer be used for graduation.
Okay.
It would be used in
Got it.
all of its other current forms.
Got it.
I have a follow-up question. So if we no longer require this as a graduation, then what does it look like for our students, especially, special needs students? They will still continue receiving, what is it, the MCAS alternative? Would that go away?
No, a very small number of students participate in the MCAS alternative. assessment. So, that would continue, but the only thing that would be different is their graduation requirement to pass the MCAS would change.
Okay.
Yeah,
Long
yeah,
Meadow
a yes
High
vote.
School. Yeah,
A
Long
yes
Meadow High
vote
School.
would just repeal. There'd be no MCAS graduation requirement for any students. It
But-
would be all local
Yep.
requirements only.
But students would still take
But they
the
would all take it
MCAS.
still.
So what does it look
And then
like?
otherwise, they would
just
still take and pass the
Yeah.
other tests, the other components of our program of studies.
Right.
They would be required to take 3 years of math and
Yeah.
pass 2 years of science,
So
if
just
I'm remembering
getting
correctly.
rid of that
Four
test
years.
requirement, that's it.
Et cetera.
Graduation,
Yeah.
graduation.
As a graduation
As a
requirement.
4
graduation
years of
requirement.
ELA, 2 years of math, 2 years of science, 3 years of social studies.
Correct.
I don't
So
know if
then
this will help,
electives.
but I feel like it will look like how it looks like at the elementary level and middle school level, where they take it too, starting in 3rd grade. So, the data is used and looked at, and you're tracking kids, and kids that have an IEP that aren't the 1% that get an alternative. They have accommodations, like small groups. And
They would still
extra time.
participate.
Yes.
Students would still
Everybody still takes
participate.
it.
I think the assessments would look as they do now.
Correct.
It just would not count towards graduation. So nothing there would change, according to Desi. And then
Jamie?
Yeah, just a follow-up question but all the follow-up and support
Still
to
there.
get the child to the score, even though the score doesn't matter, would still, because that's got to be important too. I can't
We
imagine.
I would speak
It
on
just
our
doesn't
behalf.
matter whether you
We-
grad- yeah.
Right, it would, whether they say diploma's on to it or not, we're not going to stop giving supports and, right.
Okay.
So I
would
would
we
echo
still-
a little bit what Michaela just said, that we don't wait to give students
Right,
support
support.
Yeah.
when
We
they
do it
take their
proactively.
MCAS in 10th grade. If a student takes their MCAS in 3rd grade and does not perform at the standard that is determined, they begin receiving those supports then.
Correct.
So that would be the same kind of model that we
Like
see.
they're
at the
on your
younger
radar.
grades.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
the only thing I would say to that, knowing kind of as you kind of change that around, are we still going to go to achieve those scores is what I would like. So even though you're still going to graduate, we're determining who's graduating, that's where I would just say, I think that's kind of where my head was going too, is,
Yeah,
as
just-
soon as
yeah.
are you going to still push to achieve those scores? Because there has to be some benefit in helping them learn something. I get that it creates a whole bunch of stress. I have 4 kids, and there's a wide spectrum of how these tests present them to my kids. Everybody reacts different to them between just my 4, let alone 2,000 students. Are we still going to push them to get to those scores, I guess is my question.
I would answer my honest answer, and only mine. I would say I think that would take a community-involved discussion between the school committee, the high school staff, parents, students, to say, is the scores that were previously set by DESE, is that the score we feel is the appropriate score for our students, or do we feel the benchmark should be different? We don't know what it will be, but I don't think we've been pretty successful at it, and our kids are very successful at it. They do put the hard work in, but we'd want to make sure that we could support our students, not lower the bar down here, like you're saying,
Yeah.
Jamie, but I think that's a larger community discussion before we could say tonight what
Okay.
we would do if this was repealed.
I agree. We would continue to individualize the supports that
But the
students need
supports
to
will
be
never go away.
successful and to learn and grow.
Okay.
Correct.
And I'd back it up further, say not only, would the supports be retained, but our obligation to teach to the standards and teach to a
Exactly.
high standard would remain,
Yeah, correct.
regardless of what happens, on the outcome of this ballot question.
Correct.
So I've always felt as an educator, if you address the standards, then hopefully the assessments take care of themselves.
Okay.
Other questions and thoughts? Seth?
No questions. I would just say that personally, it makes a lot of sense to me to support yes on question 2. And I would be in favor of some sort of promulgation from this committee in support of that as well.
Would you like to make a motion to that effect? There are a few policy statements if folks are interested in possible motions. Just as a reminder, in your packet you have not only the language of the question itself, but also as agenda items you have the statements of the Mass Association of School Committees, which gives a very clear statement right sort of towards the top of their page, a packet that goes into a little bit more information from the MTA, it's several pages, and then another small packet from the MASs also talking about their position on this. So you can kind of peek at those. If you are interested in a potential motion, you might find some helpful wording through looking at any of those resources. I just wondered I've inadvertently in the wrong place.
Well, I haven't found the language, but I'm happy to ad-lib a motion.
Sure, ad-lib away. Go for it.
I move that the Long Meadow School Committee adopt support for a yes position on question 2 in the upcoming referendum.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I would love to know if folks would like to, and/or if someone would support, language to add to that says that we, as the Long Meadow School Committee, do not support the use of high-stakes testing as a requirement for a graduation diploma, just to clarify why our position is that.
The graduation requirement language should be in there.
Yeah. So with what you said, Long Meadow School Committee does not support the use of high-stakes testing for a graduation requirement. We support a yes vote on question 2. Does that work?
Perfect.
Any possible second for that amendment?
Second.
All right. Any discussion related to the motion on the table?
Can I ask, is this a discussion, potential vote on your amendment to, just for Diane's
Good
clarity
question.
over here?
You can vote on the amendment first and then.
Gotcha.
vote on
Thank
the
you.
amended.
Good reminder.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll vote on the amendment first. If you heard, so we're voting right now on amending the language of Zach's motion to include that Long Meadow School Committee does not support the use of high-stakes testing as a requirement for a graduation diploma. Any questions and/or statements related to that? Okay, seeing none, we will move to a vote on the amendment. Zach?
Yes.
Estelle?
Yes.
Michaela?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
And yes for me as well. Okay.
Julie as well.
Oh, Julie, I'm sorry, I didn't see that you arrived. Oh, hold on, we can't quite hear you. 1 second.
Give me 1 second, I have the...
Hold tight. Okay, Julie, try again. Oh, nope, hold on. We're hearing you just through Dr. O'Shea's laptop. 1 second. All right. And again.
You ready?
There you are. Yes, okay.
Okay.
Your vote.
I vote yes.
Okay, fantastic, thank you. Okay, so now moving into a vote on the actual motion related to Long Meadow School Committee's support for a yes vote on question 2. Any discussion related to that before we call a vote? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. Zach?
Yes.
Estelle?
Yes.
Michaela?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
And yes for me as well. All right, thank you very much, folks. We appreciate your time here this evening. And we encourage folks to read as much as they can about this. Reach out with questions. We have multiple school administrators here who are able to answer questions as needed, and you're also welcome to reach out to any of us on the committee. So if you're watching at home and you're wondering what this ballot question means, please reach out with questions. And thank you for your time. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, with the consent of the committee, I would also like to move up from new business our discussion related to town meeting and the warrant article. We are joined this evening by our town moderator, Ms. Rebecca Townsend, who has graciously offered to come over and walk us through some of the things to know about upcoming town meeting. Our town meeting is in a few weeks on November 12th at Tuesday. And we look forward to encouraging as many people as possible to attend the meeting. And this will give us a chance to ask any questions of the moderator related to the town meeting or the citizens petition that is in front of us. All right.
And I projected
Thank you.
the wording of the
Perfect.
Article 6 from the upcoming town meeting warrant.
All right, so we have a citizen's petition that is related to the middle school building project. And as is often the case when there is a warrant article that is somewhat related to our work as a committee, we may be asked to state our position on this town meeting warrant article. So in an interest of discussing a little bit more about what the warrant article is and also what our possible positions could be related to that, Ms. Townsend is here to talk with us tonight. Thank you so much.
Of course, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and to those who are listening in at home. Happy to answer any questions related to processes and how to get involved, and obviously most specifically Article 6. I had shared with you, Chair Schwanier, a document that emerged from discussion of the Select Board meeting last night, where I spoke on the warrant generally, and then more specifically about Town Council's opinion on Article 6. As happens from time to time, there are articles that the Town Council deems would likely result in a non-binding action. So there's no consequential action that can emerge from it. We've seen this a few times over the years. And whenever we get one of these articles, there's a motion made on the article, and I will, as is my obligation, explain what a yes or no vote means, particularly noting what Town Council has said, and noting that town meeting is free to make a decision however they wish, absent this being an illegal warrant or something, or article. But in most cases, there's just a discussion, and then there's a vote. And for those articles where the motion on them would have no action, nothing happens afterwards. There was discussion at the Select Board meeting regarding this particular article and what happens if there is a negative main motion on the article. Most of our motions are affirmative. I move that we do some action. We take some action on an issue, we spend some money, we transfer some money, we approve the zoning proposal, so they're affirmative. There can be motions that are negative main motions. And we've seen this before where we have motions like I move to take no action, I move to dismiss. So those are negative main motions, and we've dealt with those before, whether on articles that the Select Board or other boards have put before us, or citizen petitioners have put before us. Sometimes the citizen petitioners are the ones who move to take no action on an article that they have put forward for a variety of reasons. And it's the petitioner's right to present the petition that they have put forward on the warrant. It's our tradition, and I'm honoring that. So I'd like to address any questions that you may have about how processes work with an affirmative motion, a negative motion, or what I call neutral motions as well in the document that I sent to you, and I'll be sharing that more broadly with the public.
All right, so we'll open up to some questions. Perhaps we can start with the first one. If there is an affirmative motion made, can you walk us through what that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the affirmative motion would be kind of taking this language here. I move that the town will vote to authorize the continued expenditure of funds, et cetera, and reading the rest of the language in the article. Typically, what happens is we have the main motion. I ask if there's a second. If there's no second, nothing happens. Almost always, motions get seconded. It's only happened once in my time as a moderator, but it did happen. So it will likely get seconded, and then we will hear a speech. I again, ask that the citizen petitioner or their designee give that first speech in support of their motion. Then we hear from board recommendations. So in this case, the school committee would be a relevant board to hear from, the finance committee would be a relevant board to hear from, the school building committee would be a relevant board to hear from. So I would be inviting those boards to make comments if they have taken a position on this particular article. We'll hear those positions, and then we'll go to the floor for discussion. And we'll alternate between those in favor of the motion, those opposed to the motion, those with questions. We'll come to a vote, and that will be the end. Perhaps.
Okay. And if it's not an affirmative motion?
Sure, if it's a negative motion. And it could be, I move to dismiss, I move that we take no action, or I move that the town will not vote to authorize the continued expenditure, or I move that the town will vote not to authorize. There could be many different ways to make it a negative main motion. I should also note, however, that a motion can change the language slightly in an article. And we've seen this several times before, where the article language as written in the warrant is not the specific language. So we always vote on oral motions. It's particularly important to listen to how the article is made, or how the motion is made, forgive me. So if the motion is seconded, we will do the same thing. We'll hear the board recommendations, we'll open up to the floor to deliberation, and then we will vote on that motion. I have made reference to our rule book, which is town meeting time, section 30, and that deals specifically with negative main motions. We've had them happen in the past. I want to read a little passage from that book. And I explain in my document here that in the rule book, it examines a hypothetical situation in which the sponsors of an article haven't made the first motion, but another board has. So in some towns, that's the tradition. So they imagine that this other board, which doesn't want that article to pass, offers a negative main motion. And it said that if that's a controversial motion, it describes what happens next. The book does not describe what happens if the sponsors themselves make a negative main motion that is controversial. So we've dealt with non-controversial negative main motions. The book explains, it imagines what happens if the negative main motion fails, and discusses what happens next. Defeating the negative is not alone sufficient to establish affirmative action on an article. After defeating the negative, the sponsors should make an affirmative motion, and since such is the obvious wish of the meeting, the moderator should see to it that someone does make such a motion. Moderator should never request that a motion be made, but they may say, no affirmative action has yet been taken. Unless an affirmative motion is made, we shall proceed to the next article, and the record will show that no affirmative action was taken on this one. So if that happens, there's not a requirement to have an affirmative motion, but it is within the realm of possibility. If there is no additional motion, then we'll just proceed on to the next article. And I need to note very carefully whether the motion is affirmative or negative, a yes vote or a no vote, a yes vote or a no vote. Either way, there is no binding action. And I know that sounds confusing, and it makes you wonder, well, how the heck do I vote if I favor X, Y, or Z? And it will be my job to try to answer those questions of people. If they want to see something happen, I will try to guide them through. There is a third type. Would you be ready for?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
That third type is something I call neutral motions, even though they're not quite neutral. This is a motion to amend or a motion to commit or refer. A motion to amend would have to be within the scope of the article, and the scope is the topic of the article, and I determine what is within the scope. Amendments would not lead to actionable consequences. A yes vote on a motion to refer to a committee is really the only thing that has some kind of quasi-action. So if there is a motion to refer to a committee, it's seconded, discussed, and approved, then it sends this article to the committee that is so named. And that committee can take it under consideration. Although the rule book does describe motions of postpone indefinitely and lay on the table, those tend to be very confusing. And we, as a town, have a tradition of not having those motions. I do not encourage them, and I will not accept any motions that add further confusion. It's my job to try to make sure that people know what they're voting for and that we are making good use of our time.
Wonderful. All right, questions, thoughts, clarifications?
So interesting.
Yes.
Really,
I'm
fascinated. I just learned a lot. I always look at the words in the print. I don't realize I should be listening to what they're saying.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
JV, and then Marie.
You can go first.
No.
These particular votes, are they majority or are they 2/3?
This is a simple majority.
Simple majority
Yep.
on all these votes that were.
On article,
Right.
on all of the motions that I said before. There are some motions like to call the question to end debate. That would be at 2/3.
Okay.
That's not a main motion.
Okay. Dr. Shea?
And a motion to amend and a motion to commit or refer is also simple majority.
Simple majority.
Yep.
So is it the petitioner that has the first right or the first opportunity to make either an affirmative or a negative motion?
Correct.
Okay.
So can I ask then, not knowing yet what a motion might be, what would be a way for a board to take a position in advance of a motion? Would it make sense to discuss the content of a motion and take a position, or the content of an article, and take a position related to the content of an article, since there is not an opportunity to confer together as a group after the motion is made?
While I can't advise on strategy, typically what boards do when they make a recommendation is, the recommendation is what they want to see happen.
Okay.
So boards can make a recommendation of what they want to see happen.
Okay, so recommendations on action. Thank you. All right. Any other questions that folks have? Julie? I can't quite see Julie, so just making sure that.
I have a question, but Nicole, you can tell me if it's not a good question.
Okay, I will try. I'm sure it's a good question, so go for it.
Can you explain a little bit what the continued expenditure of funds looks like right now based on where we are in the process?
Okay. So it's a question more related to the middle school building project as we go. So right now, the middle school building project has entered into our design phase, and continued expenditure of funds would be related to our project managers, Colliers International, our architectural firms, and all of the components of design, schematic design.
Can I add to that?
Yes, please.
So
I'm sure I forgot something.
No, that was excellent. The appropriation for the feasibility study and the design period that Nicole mentioned was made at town meeting in the
year before.
fall of 23?
Think so.
Yeah. So the authorization to expend funds on the feasibility study and now schematic design flowed out of a town meeting vote.
So just to be clear, we're just talking about continued kind of like disbursement of funds that were already authorized and appropriated.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Knowing that this is not a binding, if I'm saying that correctly, not a binding warrant.
The article, or the
non-actual.
motion on the article, either way, whether affirmative, negative, or yes, no, either permutation, there is no binding action that can happen. The discussion of it and the vote act as a resolution, and the meaning of that resolution is dependent upon what people say at the meeting, given the nature of the article.
Okay. Tom, Mr. Massa.
Curious, who determines whether it's a affirmative or negative main motion? Is it
The person
select
who
board?
makes the motion.
And that could be
It's
anybody?
by how they speak.
And it could be, is it anybody at town meeting?
In our tradition, for most of the articles, the select board is the one who makes the main motion. They're the ones who will make the main motion, speak to it, and then we hear from board recommendations, except for citizen petitions. Citizen petitions, we permit the lead petitioner or their designee to make the motion.
Other questions? All right. Seeing no questions and knowing that we are not meeting again until after our town meeting, I would like to see us make a motion related to recommending an action, since that's the thing that makes the most sense for our particular thing, for our particular component, so that if we are asked to make a position statement or to give a recommendation, that we are prepared to do so. So is there anyone who would like to make a motion to recommend a particular action? For example, related to the continued expenditure of funds?
Can I,
Yes,
Nicole,
you may.
try to make a motion?
Absolutely.
I move that the school committee, is it that we recommend?
Correct.
To continue the expenditure of funds for the further planning, design, and construction of a single combined middle school
That works.
at the Blaine School Park.
That works for me. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion related to that motion?
I would just say, the town has already voted to expend these funds. I think the work that the middle school building committee has been done in earnest to try to understand what are the potential sites and the potential costs, and have narrowed it down in a way that I think is really responsible and meets the needs of the town. We want to continue to work with people who have concerns about it, but we should let that process continue forward.
All right, thank you. Any other thoughts? I'll echo what Julie said. The two of us have been able to be part of that middle school building committee for the last few years, and it has been a very detailed and involved and thorough process, and we're very glad to see the project moving into its design phase, and hope to see support for the continuing of that project. Seeing no other comments, I will move to a vote. Zach?
Yes.
Estelle?
Yes.
Michaela?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
And yes for me as well. Thank you. Does anyone have any other questions for Ms. Townsend? Thank you so much for coming out. We appreciate the explanation.
Of course.
Of all the different choices in front of us, and every confidence that You will once again serve our town wonderfully as town moderator for our upcoming meeting. We look forward to seeing you there. All right, we are back on track and headed into school committee announcements and recognitions. I do not have a chair report tonight other than the reminder that our town meeting is coming up on November 12th, and we hope to see as many community members there as possible. Any other school committee announcements or recognitions? Seeing none, we'll head into superintendent's report.
No report this evening.
All right, other administrative reports?
I have enough coming up later, so no reports.
Okay, fair. Student representative report.
The only thing I have to add on from earlier was our college and career fair from yesterday. Just sort of second what Dr. O'Shea said. I think sort of as we're moving forward, as college gets more expensive, as we see more students worrying about debt for us, college, I think that we should sort of continue going in this direction, as we saw yesterday, of offering alternative options from college, because I think it's really critical that not only we expose students to all of their interests, as we've done with things such as the internship class, but also emphasize the sort of cost pros that come along with not going to college and either going to a trade or doing something along those lines. But yeah, I was just really impressed yesterday with how far we've come as a district in terms of emphasizing our other options besides college, because I think historically we've been very focused on college, but I think we really need to make sure we're doing a good job of emphasizing the other options students have as they depart Long Meadow High School.
All right, wonderful, thank you. Other reports, LPVC, Zach?
No report.
No report. All right, energy and sustainability, Estelle?
Hold on, let me get my notes.
No problem.
We met, we had a lengthy discussion and outreach strategy for assessment of GHG under PVP grant with some of the members. We reviewed and discussed several survey questions that was sent to Long Meadow community regarding usage of emission, identify local town laws that perpetuate higher emission in our neighborhoods, such as requirement to keep the gas mode to less than 6 inches. This law forces residents to either hire companies using gas-powered mowers or rely on individual gas-powered machines, both of which significantly contribute to increased emissions and environmental harm. And survey questions are being edited.
All right, great, thank you. Appreciate you diving into that, starting this week. SEAL, Michaela.
Yeah, so there is a SEAL meeting. The next meeting is on November 13th, and it's a presentation by the Federation of Children with Special Needs on social and emotional needs. You have to register in advance of the 13th, and that is on Zoom. And also, SEAL sent out for question 2 that they are in support of yes of question 2, so I'd like to share that too.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Subcommittees. Finance Subcommittee.
Yes, good evening.
We're back, Mr. Raza.
Finance Sub met on Friday, October 18th. Besides the items that are on your agenda, we also had some discussion related to athletics, with a presentation coming up in the near future from representatives from high school administration regarding the operations of the athletic program for FY24, conversations around field maintenance, and just a reminder that FY26 capital projects will be presented to school committee in November through Finance Sub for submission to the town for consideration for funding in FY26. On your agenda tonight, though, are a number of items, either informational or requiring some action. The first is a building use consent agenda. There are 6 requests for building use, 4 of which are annual requests, and I will go through them for members of the school committee. The first is for use of Center School, a request by the Center PTO for the annual Halloween Hustle Race on Saturday, October 26th from 6 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. and they are requesting use of the center gymnasium, approximately 150 participants. The second request is submitted from the Long Meadow Park and Rec Department for use of the high school gymnasium on Saturdays beginning in December, running through February, various dates for youth basketball from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. at the high school gym. The third, again, is a request by the Long Meadow Park and Rec Department for youth basketball program for the Glenbrook Gym, again on Saturdays in December through February, and various dates. And the time for that use would be 8 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. And then the fourth one is a request from the Rays of Hope for their annual Rays of Hope March and use of the high school parking lot on Sunday, October 27th from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. for members participating in the walk to park here and get bussed over to Forest Park. The last two are new requests to the Long Meadow Schools. Bay Path, which has used the high school auditorium in the past, but is looking again for use of it on Friday, May 2nd for the graduation ceremony of their physician assistant graduation ceremony. They are looking for the auditorium and cafeteria and parking lot with approximately 400 participants. They have requested to bring their own AV team, which we've allowed them in the past, but we also require them to have one of our technicians there to support in case there's any issues with the equipment and to ensure that there are no problems. And then the last one is a request from St. Mary's CYO basketball program for use of the Wolf Swamp Gym for their youth basketball program on Saturdays, dates in December through February, various dates. And the time is 7:45 to 12:15 p.m. This program historically was run out of the Greenwood gym, but due to some work that's being done, it cannot accommodate this request. So they've asked for use of the Wolf Swamp Gym for this year. So those are the 6 requests that are on your consent agenda.
All right, great. We have a possible motion related to the consent agenda of building requests.
I move on the recommendation of the Finance Subcommittee that the school committee approve the consent agenda for the October 22nd, 2024 school committee as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, so as a reminder, there is no discussion of individual items on a consent agenda, so I'll call them out by number, 1 through 6, really quickly, and if anyone hears a number that they would like to remove from the consent agenda in order to have further discussion on it, just let me know, and otherwise then we'll vote on the entire agenda together. We have request 1, request 2, 3, 4, 5.
What if I have a question?
And 6. You can totally ask a question. Yes. Any further discussion related to that would be the time for a question. Go for it.
Right now?
Yeah.
So for Section 5 regarding Bay Path University using our high school facility, do we charge them or we just let them use for free?
We'd normally charge them unless there's a request, which would then, we haven't received one for waiving of the building use fees.
Any further questions and/or discussion related to the consent agenda? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. Zach?
Yes.
Estelle?
Yes.
Michaela?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
And yes, for me as well. All right, wonderful. More finance.
Next item is acceptance of the FY25 grants. So in your packet is a memo outlining our grant awards for FY25. I will quickly read the various grants in the grant award amount for FY25. So we have the IDEA grant in the amount of $821,463, the Special Education Early Childhood grant in the amount of $15,096, Title IIA for $35,034, Title IV, $17,218, Title I, $117,021, the Drug-Free Community of $125,000, and then the Medco grant in the amount of $299,563, for a total of those grants of $1,430,395.
Thank you. I know we spoke about this at the Finance Subcommittee, but I'm just wondering if you can clarify for anyone who might be watching from home. Title I funding was a component of our budget discussion with this past year's budget. Can you speak to how that adjustment came about and/or what that means for us?
Yeah, so back during the FY25 budget development, there was some dialogue with a projected reduction in our award amount for Title I compared to FY24's amount. We actually had, I'd say, about double, maybe a little bit more than double the amount that we're receiving in FY25. And at the time, we had proposed reducing the two positions that were full-time positions, student support positions, one at Glenbrook and one at Wolf Swamp, down to a 0.6 or a partial FTE. And the grant amount did come in about where we had projected it to be, but based on unspent funds in the FY24 grant, which we're allowed to carry over, we were able to maintain those two positions at 1.0 positions in the FY25 budget. Again, depending upon what next year's projection will look like, we'll have to revisit that during the FY26 budget development, but for this year, we're able to keep those two positions. Primarily, all of the grant funding will go towards funding the salaries for those two positions, so we won't be able to do any of the other supporting efforts that the grant has been used for in prior years.
All right, great, thank you. Appreciate that. All right, we have a possible motion related to the acceptance of grants.
I move on the recommendation of the Finance Subcommittee that the school committee accept the FY25 grants as outlined on the FY25 grant memo dated October 18, 2024.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion related to this item? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. Zach?
Yes.
Estelle?
Yes.
Michaela?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
And yes for me as well. And more finance.
So in your packet, there are three FY24 budget documents. They are presenting the final expenditures associated to FY24. There is a general fund year-to-date budget report. There is a total budget FY24 report, and then a revolving account report also for FY24, kind of showing the activity within those accounts for the entire year and where we finished up in FY24. As expected, we did not have any funds remaining in our general fund appropriation, the money that is approved or at town meeting in support of our operations. So we spent out the full amount that was appropriated to the school department. I think, FY24 kind of came in where we thought it would. We most certainly had to move some funds around at the end of the year to balance out the lines to support the expenditures based on the activity we had. And there are two FY25 budget documents also included in the packet. Again, informational. We're maybe just about 20% through the fiscal year, so it's kind of early. So the general fund, the year-to-date budget report does not include a projection that I normally provide the committee. I would say the next one I give a little later this fall will have some projection as to best guess of where we see the end of FY25 going. But again, it is projecting activity through October I think it was the 10th or so that I ran the report. So again, early on in the year, but just informational to give the committee just a sense of where we are. I would say tracking where we would expect it to at this point in the fiscal year.
All right. Any questions related to updates on the FY25 budget? Another thing that we talked about at the Finance Subcommittee was related to substitute pay. Jamie, did you want to take that, or Mr. Mazza?
We did have a dialogue about current compensation for our substitute positions. The committee reviewed some historical and expenditure information, about 10 years worth of spending related to substitutes. We also talked a little bit about the number of absences that are covered through substitutes each year, and what it would potential impact on the budget if any movement were to happen with the rates that we currently have in place. I think the decision was to continue conversation about it, but not take any action at this time.
All right. Any questions or feedback there,
Yeah,
Jamie?
I think the only thing to add is we had a pretty decent discussion around whether you're able to get the substitutes that are needed on a day in and day out basis, within each of our schools. And right now, we feel like we're in good shape. We won't call it great, but good to be able to service the schools as we need them.
Yeah, I think I reported there are over 100 active subs currently in our absent management system. Not that they come to work here every day, but for the most part, we're able to fill a majority of our absences on a daily basis.
So if that were to change, then we probably need to revisit this at that point.
Any other thoughts, questions? All right, and last up from Finance Sub is student activity report.
The last item for action tonight is a list of the student activity sub-accounts. At the beginning of each school year, a list is submitted to school committee to authorize the sub-accounts for our middle and high school student activity accounts. This is an updated sheet that was provided in your packet, and I left a copy at your desks. You can see which accounts are being inactivated because they no longer have either clubs associated with them or transactions that will occur in FY25 associated to those specific accounts. And the ones up top would be ones that we expect to see activity in this fiscal year.
Any questions and or possible motions related to student activity accounts?
Just one quick
Jamie,
question.
yep.
Do we need to add 2028 onto here? Or?
There's an
I think
updated
it
one,
did,
Jamie, that
yeah.
does
Oh,
have.
this is the other one.
Yeah.
Yep.
should be-
Sorry, I grabbed the old one. Oh, there we go. Never mind. I'm good.
Okay. Anything else and or possible motions?
I move on the recommendation of the Finance Subcommittee that the school committee approve the Long Meadow student activity sub-accounts as presented and dated October 18, 2020.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. Zach?
Yes.
Estelle?
Yes.
Michaela?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
And yes for me as well. All right. Thank you. Appreciate
Thank
you. Policy sub. Michaela?
Policies JIE and ACAB were posted to the district's website to solicit public input. The district did not receive any input on the proposed changes to the policies. Both policies will be posted to the district's website for 30 days.
Oh, nope, I think we're done with that.
Oh, yeah, we are.
All right.
Yeah, they've been on there longer than that, actually.
Yeah. All right, so those policies have been posted to solicit public input and have not received any input. So we have a possible motion.
I move that the school committee adopt policy JIE pregnancy and ACAB sexual harassment as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion related to either of these policies? Seeing none, we will move to a vote. Zach?
Yes.
Estelle?
Yes.
Michaela?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
And yes for me as well. All right, no report from curriculum sub and evaluation sub. Met with Dr. O'Shea on Friday, the 18th, to review his annual plan. We're going to talk a little bit more about that coming up after we go through some ongoing business, and we'll be able to consider and ultimately approve that plan then. We are headed into ongoing business and the middle school building project. Dr. O'Shea, that's going to be you.
I'd simply report that we're sort of moving from the visioning and concept development stage to the more concrete schematic design phase. And so with that, our design team will begin to work directly with school staff and district staff on the very specific schematic design. We also have talked to the design team about creating some advisory groups that would include both staff and community stakeholders. And so that will be a matter that will be taken up by the building committee at a future meeting, but we're ready to roll into that schematic design phase. It will culminate with the identification of a full project scope and budget in the spring, and that would be ready for the town's consideration in the fall of '25. So really excited to get into the sort of more the nitty-gritty design work. Yeah.
I'll add on to that for anyone watching at home, if you haven't yet had the opportunity to look it over, there is an FAQ related to the middle school building project now available online. You can link to that right through the school district website, and it helps with a lot of the documents that have been pulled together are available on there, as well as answers to many questions, and that is going to be a living website, so there is more to come. As more information is gathered, there'll be more added to it also. All right. Any questions related to the middle school building project? All right, we're moving on. School committee goals. You have a couple of documents in your packet related to goals so that we can move forward with adopting our own goals for the year. Hold tight, let me get to the correct one. I got it. Thank you. Oh, I got it. Okay. All right. There we go. All right, so typically when the school committee does our goals, we try to make sure that our goals are reflective of the responsibilities of the committee. Those responsibilities involve tasks related to policy, to fiscal responsibilities, to curriculum, and to communication and collaboration with community groups. So those tend to be sort of the headings with which we move through our goals process. You'll find in your packet a 2-page document. The first page is the collection of school committee goals from last year for the 2023-24 school year, and then a collection of suggested goals for 2024 with a few small edits added in there. So give everyone a moment to see if there's any questions related to that, and maybe we can tackle them sort of one topic at a time and see where we land. All right, so looking at the first bit of goals, the school committee works through the curriculum subcommittee to engage in curriculum analysis and review. We have two possible things here in order to ensure, A, that educators have opportunity for relevant professional development and access to high-quality, research-based instructional materials aligned with mass frameworks, and B, that curriculum materials and course offerings are reflective of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging initiatives. Would anyone like to make any adjustments or additions or subtractions to goals related to curriculum? All right, so let's head into policy. I'll take a moment to peek at that one. We're just going through, Zach, we're looking at the second page with some suggested edits for goals, and we're looking at the policy sub ones right now. All right, so related to policy, the school committee will work through the policy subcommittee to ensure that policy language and intent supports LPS priorities articulated in the district improvement plan by A, cataloging, analyzing, and revising existing policies related to curriculum review and adoption, facilities updates, including the middle school building project, and technology use, and B, revising existing policies and drafting new district policies to remain aligned with MASC recommendations and statutory and regulatory requirements. Thoughts on additions, subtractions, or amendments related to that? Yep, Michaela?
I like the way when it says facility updates, in parentheses, it says including the middle school building project. I was wondering if maybe underneath technology use, we could put parentheses and say like including device usages in schools.
That's an excellent idea. Including device usage at schools.
And Julie has her.
Julie? Thank you.
I was also going to say device usage. I think that was a good one, Michaela. And then the other question that I had was whether we wanted to add anything related to the discussions we had last year around acceptance of like equipment or other gifts related to athletics. I'm not really sure where we landed on whether we needed to look at our policies there. Maybe Marty or Jeannie might remember.
Yep.
I'd say if the discussion at finance sub is any indication, it would probably be a good idea to include that.
Yeah, I would completely agree.
Yeah.
You know, I think it is potentially a topic of discussion that was, discussed at the last subcommittee meeting and, is being worked on.
So it'd be acceptance of gifts and donations.
Okay. And policies, so we could just add that in at the end then, cataloging, analyzing, and revising existing policies related to curriculum review and adoption, facilities updates, including the middle school building project, technology use, including device usage in schools, and acceptance of gifts and donations from parent groups, or just accepting gifts and donations?
I would just say period.
Yeah.
Okay, accepting gifts and donations. I'm wondering if we might want to add in with including device usage in schools, if that might also be an appropriate place for us to add in including device usage at schools and the use of artificial intelligence, because we know that there's some policy questions potentially surrounding that as we move forward into this new age of AI. Yes, okay. Including device usage in schools and the use of artificial intelligence. Okay. I'm going to read it again, so see if we're all on the same page. Okay. The school committee will work through the policy subcommittee to ensure that policy language and intent supports LPS priorities articulated in the district improvement plan by A, cataloging, analyzing, and revising existing policies related to curriculum review and adoption, facilities updates, including the middle school building project, technology use, including device usage in schools and the use of artificial intelligence, and accepting gifts and donations. Okay. And I would make that and the acceptance of, but we'll move forward from that. And revising existing policy, or B, and revising existing policies and drafting new district policies to remain aligned with MASC recommendations and statutory and regulatory requirements. All right. Does that sound good? Yes? Any other thoughts, feedback, additions, subtractions? All right, heading into the next part. Community collaboration and communication. I'll take a moment with that. Yep.
Nicole, would you like to add a corresponding thing about device use, given that we were supposed to start like an advisory group there?
Yeah,
I'm
we
not
could
sure
do
what
that.
one.
Is that I'm not sure that that's necessarily our wheelhouse. That might kind of fall into yours, and I feel like I saw that come out of your goals as well.
It will show up in my plan, but, yeah, and I think you've certainly covered it above with the device usage, but certainly if you wanted to include that as part of your community engagement work.
Okay. What would be kind of...
Up to you. I don't feel strongly about it. I just
No,
had a question,
let's see if
so.
there's a way to
Good for you.
fit it in with some of the language and see how we can make sense of that then. All right, so the language we have right now is the school committee will engage and work collaboratively with community stakeholders by A, supporting the process of the schematic design for the new middle school, and providing the community with detailed and timely updates, opportunities for input, and viable options for the middle school building project. Any thoughts related to that? That one looks good. Okay.
Could I suggest maybe
do that one a
crossing
little
out the
bit.
part about viable options, and
Yeah,
since
that's a
the
good
options
point.
have been
They
identified
have been.
already?
Okay.
Should have picked up on that.
All right, so providing the community with detailed and timely updates and opportunities for input in the middle school building project. Okay. B, creating opportunities to listen to students, teachers, and community members on DEIB-related matters. Maybe that would be a spot to do that, because we could continue creating opportunities to listen to students, teachers, and community members on DEIB-related matters, student use of technology, you just kind of add on to that.
Like ever-changing technology matters?
Yeah,
It's
what's
like
the wording we like?
constantly, I mean, you might have better lingo.
Ever-changing is a great way to say that.
That's good.
What do you think about that language then? What might be a good,
Evolving technology.
I like that, evolving?
Evolving, emerging.
Evolving and emerging, we'll go with both.
It's always
Evolving.
changing, so it's, hard to
Yeah.
write something too specific.
Okay, is there anything else we would want to add into that spot? One of the things that came out of our discussion with administration during our admin school committee retreat was the idea of community outreach related to those vision of the graduate standards, particularly as they begin to move out of just the high school and into elementary schools and middle schools as well. So we could add in there something related to opportunities to listen to students, teachers, and community members on DEIB-related matters, evolving and emerging technology, and vision of the I don't know how I want to say this though.
And vision of the graduate
Yeah.
best practices?
Yeah, maybe. I mean,
Or you could put it under
visions
3C.
for, yeah. With the student representation, or student presentations, rather.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that might be a better spot. Okay, I'm gonna asterisk this part, maybe come back to that. All right, so Part C, and developing agendas that highlight student presentations to the school committee on the Long Meadow Public Schools website and LPS social media sites. So we have historically hosted students to attend meetings at varying points throughout the year from each of our schools, and maybe we have a little bit of a framework for that within our vision of the graduate. We could ask schools, there's currently still 6 schools, and we've got 6 components to the vision of the graduate, to maybe tackle different components when they are able to come and speak to us, and in an effort to move that language out into community parlance a little bit more.
Or maybe too, like seeing the same thing, but how it looks.
I love that.
In elementary school.
Yeah.
How it looks in middle school, and how it looks in high school. So like maybe like one specific thing, like when you were talking about that puzzle, I was like, that's so cool. And I mean, I teach preschool, but I take a clothespin and we pass around the pumpkin, and like that's the kind of thing that starts something
Yeah.
like that. collaboration and teamwork, but it's hard to see, like, you gotta see you have to see it. And I, like, if I wasn't here listening to how it looks in high school, I wouldn't know.
Right? That was cool. So would we maybe want to add on to the bottom of that, using VOG standards as a framework?
Yeah.
Does that work, language-wise? Okay. Other thoughts related to community collaboration? So I think this would also be a good spot for us to talk about making sure that we're strengthening and continuing and supporting community connections to town departments and town committees. We are involved in a lot of different committees by participating in town events, serving as school committee representatives on various committees, both in our town but also in our region for our LPVEC reps, and also collaboration that's required for projects like the middle school building project, yearly budgeting, any ongoing facilities assessments and maintenance, MSBA bids, et cetera. Those are all kind of key places for us to engage and work collaboratively with key community stakeholders as well. Would we want to add that maybe as A or D, somewhere in there?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yes? Okay. All right, so I'm going to read through from the beginning, and let's see if there's anything else we want to put into here to make sense of. Also, before I do that, I just have a quick question, and maybe Diane, you might be the one to tackle this. Would you say that negotiations would fall under community communication or like collective bargaining? Does that fall there or under fiscal? I realize it's a little bit of both, but I'm just curious where you would sort of bucket it. You would keep it there. Okay, that totally makes sense. Okay, so the school committee will engage and work collaboratively with community stakeholders by strengthening and maintaining connections to town departments and committees, by participating in town events, serving as school committee representatives on committees, and collaborating on projects such as the middle school building project, yearly budget, ongoing facilities assessments, and upcoming MSBA bids. B, supporting the process of the schematic design for the new middle school and providing the community with detailed and timely updates and opportunities for input in the middle school building project. C, creating opportunities to listen to students, teachers, and community members on educational matters like DEIB and evolving and emerging technology.
Yeah. How about current topics in education?
I like that. On current topics in education. Okay.
Hot topics.
Okay, so C would be creating opportunities to listen to students, teachers, and community members on current topics in education, such as DEIB-related matters and evolving and emerging technology. And D, and developing agendas that highlight student presentations to the school committee on the Long Meadow Public Schools website and LPS social media sites using VOG standards as framework. Thoughts? Additions, subtractions, amendments? All right, we've got one more to go. Fiscal. Okay, so take a moment and look at our current fiscal goals. Okay, so currently in front of us, we have, in collaboration with town officials, committees, and legislative delegates, the school committee will work through the finance subcommittee to advocate for the A, regular review of all buildings in order to determine and prioritize needs and to develop fiscally responsible proposals for capital planning. Does that cover anything that comes up related to MSBA proposals, et cetera, or applications, et cetera?
I think so.
That fits in there. Okay, perfect. B, funding aligned with school committee goals and the district improvement plan. C, funding for curriculum materials as prioritized by the curriculum renewal cycle. And I would add in a D, to advocate for the, how do I want to say this? I had it written originally as a separate collaboratively bargain with the administrative team, Long Meadow Education Association, and the negotiation subcommittee to bargain a new 3-year contract for all employment units. I feel like that's clunky. What do I want to say here? Something related to that.
You're just trying to tie in what the negotiation side?
Yeah.
Just keep it as fun, everything else is funding, so just say funding for
Okay.
negotiations. And
There we go. All right, so D, and funding for,
New collective bargaining agreements would
yep,
probably be
and funding
sufficient.
for new collective bargaining agreements.
And E, find a money tree.
That would be amazing.
G,
Let's get on that right away. All right. Okay, do we need to hear that one again, or are we good?
I have a question for A, sorry.
Yes,
For the
no, not at all.
building, does that include any technology, like infrastructure updates?
I'll let you answer that.
From a capital perspective, meaning network, like
Like, so-
wireless access points
Yeah, like,
or
so the town is
servers.
looking to, get potential, like, fiber optic, network. So I don't know if that's part of the, capital plan.
Yes,
if
that
it does come.
That would be a capital expenditure, not necessarily something the operating budget could handle.
Okay.
All right. Other thoughts, amendments, additions, subtractions? All right, so we've gone through each of those 4 sections. Do we have any amendments, subtractions, or additions that are outside of these? Anything else anyone would really like to see reflected in our goals? All right. I think we might be there, folks. On that note, I would entertain a motion to approve our committee goals for the 2024-2025 school year.
So moved.
There we go. We have a motion. Do we have a second? All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. Zach?
Yes.
Estelle?
Yes.
Michaela?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
There you
Sorry.
are. No, it's okay. And yes for me as well. Thank you, folks. That was very well done. Good collaboration. Love it. All right. That brings us into new business, and now it's your turn.
All right. So pleased to present to you my 24-25 annual plan, which was considered by the evaluation subcommittee last week. And hopefully you'll find that many of the ideas that you just talked about in relation to your goals are reflected in my annual plan and aligned with my annual plan. So there is a detailed document in your packet, just a quick overview to sort of demonstrate the direction of the proposed annual plan, which I would need approval from the school committee on. This is part of the regular evaluation cycle that all educators experience, and so I'm sort of at that 2 o'clock stage on this, on the wheel that you're looking at, which is goal setting and plan development. So as the body that evaluates my performance, you're responsible for reviewing my goals and considering approval, and then at the end of the year, of course, is the summative evaluation of the superintendent. And so there are 3 components to the education plan, the annual plan that is before you. There are professional practice goals, there's student learning goals, and then it would be rounded out by the district improvement plan, which is under development and will be coming to a school committee meeting very soon. There are some of the features of the plan. I would say, I hope you see that it is aligned with that emerging district improvement plan that we've talked about. I hope you see that it's aligned with the goals that you just considered. It most certainly is reflective of the 23-24 evaluation. So with the evaluation subcommittee, I highlighted aspects of the plan that directly flowed out of the evaluation that you completed on me last year. So I hope you see that there's a linkage between the plan and the recommendations that the committee had for me at the conclusion of the last school year. if I had to summarize the plan, at a very, very high level, there are, attempts to support strategic directions. There's a strong focus on student safety, I would say, and then some goals relating to curriculum and instruction. So, component one, the professional practice goal, this notion of going from the balcony to the dance floor, sort of making some commitments to you that my intention is to really kind of roll up my sleeves and kind of get in the schools. I figure if I put it in writing to you, it's more likely to happen. So I talked at the evaluation subcommittee about the possibility of serving as a substitute teacher on some occasions throughout the year, and maybe being with the principals on a sort of shoulder-to-shoulder basis for a day, just to really understand what their reality is. So getting on the dance floor and really understanding the student experience and the experience of our administrators, I think, will be helpful to my practice and my growth. So that's sort of the professional development, in addition to many other things that aren't in the plan, but that's the professional development that I wanted to highlight to you tonight. The development, the articulation, and the dissemination of the district improvement plan. One of the things that I want to make sure we do this year that we could have done better in our previous iteration of the plan is to create a plan that is sort of consumable to the public. Instead of a dense document, can we create an infographic that really highlights and captures the spirit of our district improvement plan? So that's something that, as we work through the plan, and make sure that it is front and center, that it's recognizable, that there's some visual appeal almost to our district improvement plan. So that will be a goal of mine this year. The schematic design phase of the middle school project will occupy a lot of our time this year as we move into refining the education plan, looking at technology and communication systems, looking at the components and equipment and furniture that will be outfitted in every single classroom potentially in a new middle school. So they're really getting down to that practitioner level within this schematic design phase. But I hope what you see emphasized in the plan is a commitment to engage staff, engage the community in that process. Of course, collective bargaining, as you mentioned earlier, will be a point of emphasis this year as well. And then the second goal, which the student learning goal, an emphasis this year, a renewed emphasis, I should say, on student safety, with particular emphasis on digital safety, and I'd roll into that the cell phone review that the committee is expecting this year. So reviewing our cell phone policies, our cell phone practices, along with our other approaches to ensuring that students are kept safe in this digital space that they're learning in nowadays. School security, really being purposeful in our work with Long Meadow Police, Long Meadow Fire, and DPW to ensure that we have safe, secure schools. We have settled into a real strict protocol around the security drills that are expected at every school, and we're trying to be very purposeful about communicating those drills to families so that they understand what the avoid, deny, defend drills look like at each school. A little different, elementary, middle, high. We try to do things that are developmentally appropriate. Yale Ruler, this committee has heard a lot about, but that continues to be a push this year to implement in a way that is supportive of staff and students. Strong emphasis on using two tools from that Yale Ruler approach, the mood meter and the school and classroom charters. So I've been happy to see how our educators and our staff and our students have embraced those charters this year at the K-8 level. Academic rigor and relevance, I will tell you that one of the one of the things that we heard loud and clear from the staff and community survey that we did last spring was making sure that we are, maintaining that commitment to academic rigor, but also balancing it with relevance, kind of what Andrew was talking about earlier. How do you create rigorous learning opportunities that also are relevant to kids, that give kids authentic opportunities to learn and maybe see their future. So college and career readiness continues to be a point of emphasis for us. Evaluator training, the rollout of our data warehouse called Panorama, and then a real comprehensive commitment to professional development on universal design for learning. And so it's been something that we have been involved with for the last couple of years, but we see this as being a commitment over the next 3 years, commitment to professional development relate on universal design for learning. So at a very high level, a quick level, respectful of how long we've been here tonight, wanted to provide the committee with that overview, and happy to answer any questions that you might have. Appreciate the feedback of the evaluation subcommittee. And again, I hope you see that it's connected to the evaluation that was completed at the end of last year. So, thank you.
Questions, thoughts, feedback?
Just
Yep,
one
Jamie?
question. Being in the evaluation set, I was just reading number 1 again.
Yep.
And just want your opinion on whether we should put succession planning as part of that as well.
Yep.
Because I've been a big proponent of the last few years, you've done a very good job of reorganizing how we do things to make it better for the students, parents, everybody.
Yeah.
But from a succession plan, is it something you think we should put in there? I don't know. I was just thinking about it as I read it, and I didn't even think of that whenever we met last week, or whether that's just something separate that you're working.
No, in fact, that was one of the points of emphasis from the evaluation at the end of last year, and so there is a component there about our commitment to that Emerging Leaders Fellows program. So we have about 8 administrators right now that are involved in this sort of aspiring or early career administrative pipeline, and we're working with an outfit called the Center for Leadership and Educational Equity.
Yeah.
And so we've got about 8 of our early career administrators that are involved in that right now. And
That's great.
I think that hopefully hits that, sustainability and succession piece that you're thinking about. But if there's other things that the committee wants to see reflected in the plan, by all means.
Yeah, if it's a part of that, then that's good. Yeah, I just want to make sure we're kind of cultivating
Yeah.
kind of from within.
And I think we're still, with the central office reorg, we're still working through that and kind of understanding how that can create some sustainable practices for us at the central office level, and really making sure that our central office administrators are there to actively support what's happening at the building level.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other thoughts, feedback?
I like the getting off the balcony and onto the dance floor. You can come onto my dance floor anytime.
I won't be dancing, let's be clear.
You might do a little dancing if you're doing
There's no
elementary.
dance parties, you don't want to see that.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Like the DJ, this one.
Yeah, there's probably a better metaphor for me than that, but.
I kind of like that one, actually.
And
I
it's-
like that it's kind of three-pronged as well, the idea of getting into classrooms and having that perspective of teachers, the
Yeah.
idea of spending the day with an administrator to see sort of what their day looks like from car line to car line, and the idea of shadowing a student. And if I recall correctly, you mentioned that being an opportunity for the middle school, which will help with the middle school visioning process that we're engaged in now.
Yeah, so there's some yet to be identified poor middle school student who might have me attached to their hip for a day. So that's something that I think really diving into and understanding the programming and the flow of the student's day at the middle school level would be helpful. So,
Kid.
yeah, poor kid.
Give me one long day. You gotta behave the whole day.
All right, so we have a possible motion, if no one has any further questions related to approving this plan.
I move that the school committee approve the superintendent's annual plan 2024-2025 as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. Zach?
Yes.
Estelle?
Yes.
Michaela?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Julie?
Sorry, I'm not good on mute. Yes.
No problem. And yes for me as well. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And looking forward to hearing progress throughout the year. Moving on, we have an acceptance of gifts. I'm guessing, Mr. Mazza, that might be you.
I can take it.
They've heard enough from me.
Recently, the high school received a gift from the Gary Rome Surprise Squad in recognition of a teacher at the high school. So the individual and the school were each awarded a $500 gift card. And the school plans on using it in support of their faculty and needs for the building.
All right. Great. Congratulations to the teacher for that.
Mr. Williams?
Thank you. I was
Yes.
like, I know it was in the email, but now I've forgotten who it was.
John
Thank
Williams.
you. Mr. Williams, congratulations to him. So we have a possible motion to accept that gift.
I move that the school committee accept with genuine appreciation the gift to Long Meadow High School as described on the gifts to the school document dated October 22nd, 2024.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. Zach?
Yes.
Estelle?
Yes.
Michaela?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
And yes for me as well. And that brings us to some ethics disclosures. It's the annual time of year for that again.
Sure.
Which of you would like to start?
I'll take it.
Okay.
So, Mass General Law, Chapter 268 is the conflict of interest law. And so, I'll speak for Tom too, if it's okay. We both have immediate family members that are employed by the district, so it's important that we acknowledge that, disclose it, and give the committee an opportunity to consider that. So there's really two sections of that conflict of interest law. There's Section 19, which would say that we would need to abstain from participating in any action that could potentially benefit a family member unless the committee decided that that conflict of interest was not so substantial as to affect the integrity of services. So that's sort of the Section 19 disclosure that both Mr. Mazza and I have made. There's also a Section 23 disclosure, which is also a statement essentially that we would not use our position to secure unwarranted privileges. And so this is a disclosure that we make annually. Section 19 requires that the school committee, if you felt this way, that the committee would have to take a vote to say that the conflict of interest that we've disclosed is not so substantial as to affect the integrity of services, and that there's some wording that was developed by your attorney, if that's what you want to consider. And then the Section 23 disclosure is simply an acknowledgement that you've received that disclosure. So we each have a Section 19 and a Section 23 disclosure. Anything, did I hit that okay?
You did.
And just to clarify for anyone either at home or new to this, the opinions that you gather come from the Ethics Board for the state related to these disclosures.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the wording for your potential vote came from the committee's legal counsel.
Okay. Questions related to this? Yes, Jim?
Not question, just Marty, you're
Yeah.
23, the wrong dates in there. You
Read
have
the wrong-
2104.
Yeah,
I
I
think
was
it's
gonna
just
say the same
24.
thing.
Okay.
Just so
See
it's
that.
All right.
not going, just because it is
Yeah.
a legal document.
Yep, thank
Oh,
you.
Yeah, good point.
We'll we'll amend that.
As amended.
At the
Yeah.
bottom of 23.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
two different ones. I think it's
Yeah,
just.
thank you.
Oh, yeah.
And we do these every year?
Yes. Yeah,
Negotiating it.
the
Am I- I
section,
remember that last year.
Section 19 is especially important to do that in advance of negotiations. So essentially, to allow us to sit at the table, that Section 19 disclosure is necessary.
Other questions related to that? Are we good to just say as amended then, instead of as presented? What makes the most sense there?
As amended, if you're okay with that? And
Yes?
yeah.
Okay. We have a possible motion?
I move the school committee accept as amended the filing of Dr. O'Shea's conflict of interest disclosure form as required by Mass General Law, Section 268A, Section 23B3.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion related to Dr. O'Shea's Section 19? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. Zach?
Yes.
Estelle?
Yes.
Michaela?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
And yes for me as well. Moving on to the next one.
Oh, I can do it. The school committee, having reviewed the conflict of interest disclosure form filed with the school committee by Dr. O'Shea as required by Mass General Law, Section 268A, Section 19, I move that the school committee vote to determine that the financial interest disclosed on the form is not substantial as to reflect the integrity of the services to the municipality, and that the chair be delegated the authority to execute the form.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion related to this? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. Zach?
Yes.
Estelle?
Yes.
Michaela?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
And yes for me as well. All right, moving on to Mr. Mazza.
I move the school committee accept the filing of Mr. Mazza's conflict of interest disclosure form as required by Mass General Law, C 268A, Section 23B3.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. Zach?
Yes.
Estelle?
Yes.
Michaela?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Julie? Julie? You might have a tech trouble. And yes for me. We'll circle back.
Oh, I
there
said
you are.
yes.
Oh,
I
sorry.
don't know if you heard me.
Okay, we did not. There you go. All right, and finally,
Yep, the school committee, having reviewed the conflict of interest disclosure form filed with the school committee by Mr. Mazza, as required by Mass General Law, C 268A, Section 19, I move that the school committee vote to determine that the financial interest disclosed on the form is not so substantial as to affect the integrity of the services to the municipality, and that the chair be delegated the authority to execute the form.
we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. Zach?
Yes.
Estelle?
Yes.
Michaela?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
And yes for me as well. We have no executive session, which brings us to one final motion for this evening.
I move that the school committee adjourn the October 22nd, 2024 school committee meeting.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. Zach?
Yes.
Estelle?
Yes.
Michaela?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
And yes for me as well. Thank you very much. We look forward to seeing everyone in a few weeks at town meeting, and have a lovely rest of the evening.
Good night.